Okay, welcome everyone, and thanks for attending this computing panel. We did have a more fancy name for it, but it didn't actually get put in the schedule, and I can't for the life of me find out the name of that thing. But us being computing specialists, computer scientists, computer developers, game developers, we need simple, prosaic titles like the Comp Panel, which is what we have today. So thanks for coming to join us. So I have 4 guests. I'm glad my maths worked there. And I'm very pleased to introduce James Heath, Chris. Sorry.
Weevil.
Sorry, Chris.
It's a hard one to remember. You're forgiven.
And Paul Rauker, is that correct? And Daisy Baker. All of whom are in some way connected to the university as kind of alumni. I know one of them is a slightly different in some respects, but it kind of links everyone. So what I wanted to do was just first of all get each member of the panel to briefly explain kind of their connection to Falmouth and what they're currently doing. So I think we'll sort of start on this side. Daisy, I don't know if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about where you're at and where you've come from.
So I'm based here in Truro in Cornwall. I'm a XR developer at Kilo Solutions, so I don't work in games, but I make training simulators for shipping and like naval companies. Anybody who wants to work with us, we tend to personalize the simulator a bit for them, and that's what I work on. I'm connected with Falmouth University through their game development programming course. I think that's basically me, a little intro to me.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Paul. I graduated Falmouth in 2021, quite a little while back now. Studied for 3 years, and I'm now working at Raw Power Games. We're a bit of a new kid on the block. I work as a tools programmer, so lots of UI, UX for that sort of thing, improving processes and just making the life of many people a lot easier. That pretty much sums up our tools department in one word.
Hi everyone, my name's Chris. So my journey is a bit different with the university. So I have a bachelor's degree in games programming and design from Staffordshire University. And then I moved to Falmouth to study Masters in Business. Through doing that Masters, which is now known as the Launchpad Programme Accelerator they have, I incorporated Hertzian, which I'm CEO and co-founder of. And Hertzian is the creators of Player XP, which is basically a digital AI solution for the games industry, where we work with some of the biggest studios and publishers in the industry and giving them data analytics, which I'm sure we'll probably explore and go into a bit more detail later.
Hello, my name's James. I came here to the university from 2019 to do a Computer for Games degree, and then after that I spent a year doing a Games Design Masters, which I graduated in 2023. At the moment, I'm currently in a contracted position with a indie studio called Grassroots Studio, working as a games programmer.
So thanks, guys. That's a good introduction. So what I wanted to was because I'm assuming a lot of people in the audience will be graduating or maybe graduating in the coming years. So I just wondered whether you could kind of expand a little bit on how your relationship to the university from your studies or other activities has had some effect or influence on your current success. I don't mind. Who wants to start? Who wants to start on that one?
I mean, I guess I can start. So the company that I incorporated and made is born in partnership with the university. So without the university, we wouldn't really exist today. So the accelerator programs, whether that's the Games Academy Accelerator program or the Launchpad one with business, is a kind of cornerstone of the business that I have today, which incorporated in 2014, 2015. So it's a big part of the work that we do and the partnership we have with the university. And there's other projects and other engagements we've had with the university, whether that's supporting other businesses, supporting the games teams, or even with robotics, looking at gantry stuff. So there's a lot of different projects and a lot of different engagements that we've had with the university over the years. Probably too much to mention, really.
Thanks, Chris.
Well, I can speak on it a little bit. So basically, it was most of the skill set that I gradually learned through the 3 years of my game development programming, especially in the teamwork. The university here, it has a lot of focus on the team working aspect, and it really gave me an insight into how other disciplines work. So when I went into interviews and discussions with other companies, even though I eventually ended up out of games and in a different industry, it's still all applied, and I had a good understanding of how everybody else worked and a broad understanding of general kind of how to run a team and a business, because I actually also worked a little bit in the Launchpad with my third year team and beyond that. So that really helped me integrate into a different business as well.
If I can build a little bit on top of that, I
Mhm.
think the collaborative aspect fostered at the university has really helped me as well as a tools programmer specifically, because working in tools, you get to work with pretty much all the other disciplines. And at university here, that's pretty much what we did. We worked with designers, we worked with artists, we worked with our music team, so many other people, so many other disciplines, so many different workflows that, when you go out in the industry, you need to account for. And as part of a tools team, you need to start understanding their processes, their workflows, how they think, the problems that they bring up to you, and why they've brought them up to you, and how you can build on that and improve on that, and ultimately build tools to help address those problems.
And for me, I've got a very sort of similar story, but mine actually differs quite a bit, where I actually joined the university and my degree as what is considered as a mature student. So I started my degree when I was 26, so that was about 6 years ago. And essentially, I started off with pretty much next to no experience making games. I had no idea sort of how to approach it. I had really no experience with like the game engines such as Unity or Unreal Engine. And I mean, the first couple of weeks for me were trying to like forcefully make things work by kind of hard coding things. But over the course of the 3 years, I sort of like I got to meet a wide range of different people. You got to meet like loads of other students who had the experience, and getting to sort of follow and learn from everyone else. And then over the time, I got to develop my skills. I got to work in these teams, like everyone else said, how to communicate with the different disciplines, and eventually I think that helped me immensely in starting off with pretty much no experience to being able to kind of tackle challenges head on, do things by myself, be able to sort of dive deep into problems and come up with solutions and implementations for a wide variety of different gameplay features. So.
Great, thanks everyone. I was wondering, building on that, because I think it's interesting. We obviously promote the idea of team working from the very outset for all students, and I think it's sometimes a painful process for a lot of students. It's kind of, why can't I just do this on my own? Why do I have to be with all these people who are kind of hindering my progress or affecting my progress? But I wonder if you could now with the benefit of hindsight, and Chris, perhaps with the benefit of being a CEO, you could kind of talk about that kind of what you did into teamwork here, I know you've touched on it, but whether you could build on that a little bit more about how that's expanded in your actual roles in industry, and kind of the challenges you find in industry that are related to teamwork as well, and maybe they are similar or different. I don't know if anybody wants to kind of talk about that.
Well, the one of the main people that I work alongside before me had worked solo on a lot of projects. So I came in with immediately working with a larger group of people to working with someone that hadn't worked alongside another person for quite some time, because they knew what they were doing. You often find that people are headstrong in the industry, so it's really good to come out. Well, for me anyway, I came out of third year with the ability to adapt to different pipelines and workflows, because there are some people in your team that just may not be able to work on every workflow. But if you have the ability to learn those different ones through the university here, it really helps you adapt to different people in the industry. And for me, they didn't really use Git very much. Like they would just work solo on the project themselves. So being able to learn that so well throughout university, and obviously I would help other disciplines who weren't as proactive with it. That really helped me go into that new business, and then also improve that workflow for them. They were very appreciative of the fact that I came in with an extensive knowledge about it that I was only able to learn here at the university through different teamwork.
Well, I'm glad we can provide gifts to the industry with that, Daisy. So you saying that kind of in some ways. So how big is the team that you're working with now?
So it kind of depends on the project, because internally there's only a few people. When the company that I'm working in, it expands with contractors and external developers as the projects come along, because mainly I work on just updating one piece of software, which is what we call Vasco, which is the main training simulator for ship handling. But there will be some people that come along with specific needs, and if that is quite expansive, needs a lot of modeling, it's a lot of new features, then we will take in some contractors from external other companies to help us alongside. And then that's kind of where being able to be adaptive to other people really helps. And it helps if they're the same way, of course, because then you can come to an equal ground. But being able to work with a broad range of people throughout 3 years, because you obviously don't have much control in the first couple of years who you work with, and you're meeting lots of different people with different styles of work, really helps in the industry. Because if you think anybody is awkward now, it's going to be the same way when you get out of industry, when you get out of university, I mean, and into industry.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Well made. I don't know if anybody else wants to kind of talk a little bit about the relationship of teams in their current role.
I think I always said it whilst, because like I said, I was older. I had a lot of work experience before coming to university in different areas, but essentially something that is a key skill to develop is how to work with people, especially if you don't necessarily like those people. And it's kind of, it sounds silly, but it's kind of important to actually develop how you approach working with someone that you maybe necessarily don't like. And you might not like them, but actually, I've had so many different examples where I myself and someone else didn't get on at all. We were complete opposites, hated each other, but we worked extremely well together. But then also you can really like someone and you can get on with them, but you don't work well with them. But then also there's like the combination of the other two. You can like someone, work really well with them, or you could really not like someone and really not work well with them. An important aspect is being able to confidently and professionally still be able to communicate with these people on fair ground, and like treat everyone with the respect they deserve. Everyone's bringing a different skill set, everyone's bringing different ideas, and everyone still deserves a chance to get those out there and for you to be able to collaborate, because that's when you start performing really well.
Thanks. Yeah, some really good insights. Paul, I don't know, did you have anything to say on that point?
I think the only thing I would add, in addition to what's already been said, is mainly to do with, I think, transparency, which I think has been a major sticking point in my, admittedly, few years in the industry, because when you're working as part of a diverse team and there's a lot of requests coming in for you to, okay, you should be fixing this, you should be improving that, there's a lot of feeling that if you're just on your own and you might be siloed or stuck working on something, you might not realize that, okay, there's a lot of people waiting to hear, right, what's been going on, has there been any progress? So it's very important to keep in touch and communicate with everyone on the team and make sure that everyone is on the same level and information is being shared and priorities are being set correctly, which admittedly, it all comes down to communication, which I think has been instilled in us right from, I think, year 1 and 2 at university.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. Team working is absolutely fundamental to creating good quality work and just employment more generally. And the point around being able to work with people you don't like is really critical, because I think one of the things that, a difficult transition from university is understanding that when you move into employment, that people that you'll be working with are not necessarily your friends, they're your colleagues. And a lot of the university environment, and I know this from experience, is you'll be working in groups and you'll be working with teams, but you'll be very friendly and you'll be very well known to, your cohort. And in a professional sense, that's less likely, and you'll be put in a situation where you will have to have difficult conversations and you will have to be transparent and you will have to have clear communication with your colleagues. And ultimately, if you don't, then that's where you're going to run into issues with your supervisor or your line manager because you're not all pulling into the same direction. So I think when it comes to team working, when I was a student, an industry veteran came in and said to me that it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And I kind of, a typical student, many moons ago, I was like, roll my eyes, I was like, yeah, sure. But it really is about who you know. And when we talk about it's not about what you know, but who you know, it's about building those relationships and being able to work well with others, even if you don't know them personally. So it's a skill I think that everyone can probably build on.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. I mean, I was a CTO in a company, and the CEO, I just couldn't stand him. But he had an incredible gift to get in the same room with Sony, with Nike, to get us into all sorts of different kind of investment panels and be able to make things happen. And so I kind of had to kind of agree with him on certain things and kind of work with him. It was always a difficult relationship, but there were some really powerful things came out of that relationship. Even though eventually we did part. So there is something in that, and I think what you've all just commented is talked about is really sort of relevant and important, and that I think that communication piece is a really important thing. The one thing we all think, oh, they must know what's going on inside my head, but actually most people don't know what's going on inside your head, and so that thing of just saying, I've just done this, I'm just about to push this thing, I'm about to do that, I'm about to do this, all this kind of communication, which sometimes feels really kind of like sort of like over too much stuff, but to do it actually kind of is a really valuable skill because it kind of allows everyone else to know what's going on with the project at any one moment.
I think,
yeah,
sorry, just to quickly add to that, you could, I don't know, I'm not going to specifically say anyone in particular or anything. You could be the best at what you do, or the best programmer, the best designer, whatever. But if you are unable to communicate and you're unable to sort of, play nice, let's say, you're not doing a good job. So you're not, the value you're bringing to the team is a lot less than someone who might not be as good as you at programming. And there is a key there's a key difference and distinction between working really hard and actually doing the job right. So
yeah, I can add on to that actually. So this might be like oversharing and kind of exposing too much about the internal workings of the business, but in our recruitment process, it's actually one of the fundamental things that we check in interviews. So all of the interviews at Hertz are basically broken down into two sections. We assess technical ability and behaviours. Behaviours are what people commonly call soft skills, but I hate that phrase. I think it's a terrible phrase, so we just call it behaviours, right? And a lot of people think like qualifications, degrees, like industry experience is like the forefront of the assessment in an interview. But it's not. It only actually makes up like 30 to 40% of the grading that we give candidates over interview, right? And most of the grading and most of the kind of assessment is actually about their behavior, which includes things like communication, team working ability, their approach to like authority, their approach to criticism, are they resilient? So the point that you raised is spot on. Like you could be the best programmer, the best designer, the best artist ever, and you might even have like an air of arrogance with you because of the quality of your portfolio. But I'm telling you now, honestly, it won't matter because if you go to an interview and if they spot that you can't work well with others, then you're going to be at the bottom of the list of the selection. And the games industry is absolutely fierce. So, and it's a scary thing because I think a lot of people worry about the social anxiety of interviews and talking and networking, especially in the games sector. That's an area where a lot of people struggle. So when you're told this is an area that you need to build on and work on, it's kind of frightening because you have to do that and work in your portfolio. But it is something that people should take care to work on, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really important thing. I think, and communication is, especially in this particular specialist panel where we're talking about. I mean, communication is everything from the words that come out of your mouth to the comments you leave in your code to your commit messages to everything. This is the way that you communicate amongst programmers, and being clear and kind of precise about that is so critical to create a good product. So, yeah. So what I wanted to build on, and coming from talking about commits, was what do you think? As it's a computing panel, what kind of skills, what technical insights that you've kind of maybe taken from your university days, but something you've developed in industry, what you're kind of doing currently, kind of what sort of technical directions are you going in? What are you learning that's new, or what have you built on perhaps from what you learned at university, that perhaps you could talk about?
I think
Sorry, you want to go?
I think the main thing I would say I took from the years in university, or one of the big things, is not being afraid to fail, not being afraid to try out new things. And this is primarily, I'm thinking of tech. So, trying out a new API, a new engine, a new way of solving problems, because at the end of the day, the value you bring to the company is not technically just the code you write, it's your problem solving skills and how you solve those problems. So if you try and keep an open mind about, some new tech that's out there, or, just trying to broaden your horizons a little bit, that's never a bad thing. And you shouldn't be afraid to hit a wall, because there's always going to be, resources available to you online or as part of your team. We're in a very collaborative industry, I think. So more often than not, there are people that are, willing to help you out. It's just a matter of being honest about, okay, I've hit a bit of a hurdle, I could use some help, or, just making progress that way. So I think that's one thing I would take away.
I wonder, Paul, could you elaborate? You were talking about hitting walls. Could you maybe elaborate on a specific example? It'd be interesting kind of to hear
Yeah, so
what wall you've recently come against.
Well, I can draw a parallel to my first year in university when we first tried out Unreal Engine, and that was a bit of a wall for us as a team, because I came from a C++ background in high school, so I was somewhat familiar with how things worked. But then I entered the Unreal Engine code base, and I was like, that's not how things work. It was a bit of a surprise to see, how things worked in the context of Unreal Engine, of a new engine, effectively, because my only experience up to that point was Unity. But learning from that and, slowly building my way through it, talking to people, to my colleagues, to our lecturers, and not being afraid to keep at it and reach out when I needed help. Years later, when I'm in the industry and, let's say I cannot find a way to automate something or to access this very niche thing that the engine should be able to do, I just, I'm not afraid to reach out to my lead or to my senior and ask them, hey, what's going on? Do you have any suggestions? Or just posting in a thread on our Slack or Teams and just asking for an opinion, because it's easy to feel like, okay, I don't want to be viewed as, unknowledgeable or not having the skills required. But at the end of the day, you cannot know everything. You will need to reach out eventually for some help, and you shouldn't feel ashamed of it. Never.
Building off what you said a little bit there about, if you don't know something, I think something that needs to be really clear about when you move into industry is that you're not expected to know everything. Something that is said quite a lot in my team is that it's not an individual problem, it's a team's problem. So if you have an issue, just come forward and you can bash heads together about it. But also what I took from university, which felt slightly redundant at the time when writing essays, it improved my ability to research a lot. And that's very transferable for when you're programming. If you are working on a function or a mechanic or anything and you get stuck, the first thing you should be doing is Googling it. And you need to know the right keywords and the right places to look. And if you get stuck there, then move on to a teammate or another coworker or anything. And as working in, computing, you might be very eager just to stay within the computing group of people to ask for feedback and for help. But really, you should also look to a fresh perspective, to an artist or a designer, because we often we know how the how it works behind the scenes. We can see how a mechanic works in the code, or oftentimes even when you just play with it. But someone else might not know that, and they can approach it in a different way, and you might be broken in that way. You should just always just gain a fresh perspective and really focus on your research, especially when you hit a problem, I think.
I think I just wanted to expand to say that essentially, when you're working with a team, or when you're at university, a lot of your assignments, they will be you just doing the work on your own, and you are pretty much trying to figure out a lot of the things on your own. That's not to say that the lecturers aren't there to help. What I mean is, like, this is your individual piece of work that you need to do for yourself. But when you get into the industry and when you get a job, that aloneness, that's not a thing anymore. You are within a team. You've got people surrounding you who have faced probably the same challenges. And something in my first job in the industry, something I had drilled into me was ask first. And if I was given a programming bug, or an implementation, essentially the first thing that I got told time and time again, and there were times where I was spoken to quite sternly by a lead because I wouldn't do it because I was a bit anxious about it, or I was scared to make the post or whatever, is essentially was, if you have even the slightest doubt, or you think we don't want you spending all day stuck and on your own, ask first, get the team's message out there. People, just because I ask at 4 o'clock doesn't mean someone's going to be able to answer at 4 o'clock. If you send the message at 8 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning, that gives people a day to get back to you. They might not get back to you until 3, but at the very least, it's out there. And then, you'll get a bunch of ideas, you'll get new perspectives, you'll get you'll get new ways of how to think about it, or someone might even just say, let's jump in a call and do it together. But yeah, get out of your head that you have to do everything on your own, or you have to prove a point, because you don't. They are going to understand, because they've been in that position, that you are not going to always know what to do. If you do, that's great. If you manage to sort of get into a bug and figure out in an hour or so, that's wonderful. But it's not going to be like that every time, and you're going to have to kind of swallow your pride a bit and be like, I want to get an idea of how someone else might do it.
Yeah. Technical barriers and headaches or bugs or issues, particularly the really tricky ones. It comes back to that team working element, like learn from your peers and ask your peers. Don't be afraid to do that. And trust me when I tell you this, that if you're spending days and days and days trying to fix a bug and you haven't asked a colleague for help, and that colleague could have fixed it like that, then your manager will have a problem. And that's probably some of what you're kind of alluding to there. So just like learn from your peers, give everything a go, engage with the conversation, and don't just kind of bury yourself under lots of headaches and problems with your code or with whatever you're building, because there's a good chance that there's someone sitting in a desk in another room or even across from you that's had exactly the same problem, knows how to fix it straight away, which happens quite a lot, I think, in this place. It's never a new problem. Someone else has probably experienced that thing.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice that all of you picked up on that. I think it's a common thing. Sometimes I still have it, is that idea that you sit there thinking, I should know this thing, and you feel really anxious about it. I know it happens with student teams a lot, particularly for us, especially like in student teams, you've got programmers. I'm assuming most of the people in this room are programmers. You feel the weight of the project a lot on your shoulders, because you kind of you're the buck stops with you, because basically you're the bottleneck that makes the thing happen. It's not that other people are not really also really important, but sometimes they can place a lot of stress on programmers, and there's a feeling that you can't ask those critical questions. But I always encourage people to do that. And as these guys are pointing to, when you're in industry, the important thing is the products. It's not about your individual skills; it's about the team skills in order to deliver the product. So you want to reach out in order to kind of make that, the most efficient and time-effective way of kind of getting the thing solved. And done. So I think those are really good points. Thanks a lot, guys.
I think Sorry.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to remember that you're not expected to remember everything and know everything. I mean, my leads at times, when we were working through a problem together, even like the simplest sort of syntax or implementation of a line of code, and was like, we've actually kind of forgotten how to do this. It's literally the other day, I was working in Unreal. I needed to do make a check to see whether we're on a dedicated server or a peer-to-peer server. And it's one line of code that I've seen hundreds of times, I've written hundreds of times, but because I haven't touched it in 3 months, I completely forgot what I was supposed to do. I remembered little bits and pieces. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's this word here, but I forgot I had to add one extra little bit to it or something. So you don't, you, you're not supposed to know everything. There's no way you're going to be able to remember everything, but it's why you have everyone else around you, because someone else might remember that line, or you might just have to use your research skills to remember how you found it, and then you find it again, and then, it reinforces the idea that you can actually just solve your problems by just looking into it or asking.
Yeah. Great. I don't know if anybody had anything more to add, or
Just that, I guess it's a team effort, particularly when you're like making a game in the games industry. You want that game to be best thing ever, and also your name is probably in the credit, hopefully. So you really want it to be the best game ever. So it's a joint collective effort, and it's very different to what you experience at the university when you're a team of 11, and your colleagues, the cohort, your peers might not be working or kind of putting that effort in. You don't really have that problem in industry, because in industry, if you're not working, you're not producing, they'll just let you go. So it is a different experience, but it's a team effort. Everyone's pulling in the same direction. So this kind of idea of asking for help and collaborating with others, is a really strong sentiment in industry, particularly games industry.
Great. So I'm gonna open up to the floor shortly, but I thought I'd sort of finish, as it's a computing panel, by talking about the elephant in the room, and that is the ubiquity of AI. Or as us specialists call it, machine learning, supervised learning, reinforcement learning, neural networks, convolution neural networks, deep Q networks, and so on and so on. And everyone should know about that. But I wondered whether the panel could expand on your experience with AI, maybe within your current role, whether you make use of AI to help you. I don't know. It's a controversial topic, but maybe you are, and how that manifests itself. But also, whether your industry is making more use of AI, whether you're writing or coding algorithms related to AI. Just any sort of thoughts about that? I know for Chris, it's kind of part of the core part of his business, but I thought it was relevant to everyone here. So I don't know if anybody wants to start and talk a little bit about that.
I'd start by at least giving my 2 cents on AI in general, and the way I see it, it's a tool like any other tool. There are things it can do, things it shouldn't do, and things it cannot do. Speaking from personal experience, it depends when I use it or not. When I'm working with Unreal, there are some things I've noticed that some of the models out there can get right. Other times they just hallucinate. That's in part due to the sheer amount of data we're talking about with code base as large as Unreal's. I mean, realistically, I don't think there is a single person out there that knows the entire code base by heart. But it has its uses. I found it's able to recognize, most models out there I think are able to recognize the general gist of, if you're looking for a specific thing you want to do, they may be able to point you into general direction or like some relevant documentation. In terms of my personal projects, I tend not to use that much AI, but that's primarily because I'm trying to challenge myself to learn specific APIs, specific frameworks, and try to build things up from scratch. It's obviously not going to apply to everyone, and that's just my style of learning, but it's, I think, a way of doing things. Whether it's the right or wrong one, I think we'll find out in hindsight in like 10 years from now. But I think until then, we'll see. But that's just my thoughts.
I'm in a similar position where there's some reasons that I use it. Sometimes I'll use it to explain parts of features that I don't understand in the maritime industry because I'm not immediately from a maritime industry, but that is where I'm working and bringing my game development skill set with Unity to help build on the simulator. But sometimes I'll use it to explain concepts that I found online. So, for example, because we are building everything onto basically a mobile phone, an Android phone, which runs on the Quest 3 or the Quest 2, has to be extremely, extremely optimized. So a lot of what Unity will provide with, we don't have control over the internals of that feature. So I have to rebuild it. So for example, the collision system, it was too complicated and it wouldn't run very well on the headsets. So I had to make my own kind of collision system, and there was a lot of theories around online that I couldn't wrap my head around. So I'd use AI to kind of explain certain points of it, and then I would ask it to write up code that I would find from a different language into C#, and I would use it as a base to build off of. But I don't use it to just create code. I often use it as a learning tool. And to expand from other languages if I'm confused about a topic. My team at Kilo, we have discussed using AI to assess people within the simulator, but we've realized it's just really not advanced enough yet to be able to pick up a lot of things that a human trainer would be able to notice. So it's not replacing anybody, it is just a tool for us.
Right. Very good. Don't know, anybody on the far sofa? Any
I mean,
thoughts?
I could talk about this for days.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So to kind of recap, like my entire business is about and around AI. We were actually developing AI before it was known as AI, and we used natural language processing in 2015. And everything we do is text analytics. So when a player or a patient or a member of staff is talking about a product or a service or an experience, they're leaving a review or they're shouting on Steam or Reddit, wherever it may be, any social medias, there's a lot of chat around there. We take all of that conversation, we analyze all of it using AI that we developed, proprietary systems, and then we determine all the good things that are said, all the bad things are said, what the topics, whether it's toxic, racist, abusive, whatever it might be. And then we give those insights to our client base, which are, studios and publishers like Behavior Interactive or Rockstar, Warner Brothers, just to name a few, right? So we've been in space a long time. There's lots of different topics of conversation around AI, whether it's a good thing or it's a bad thing, or it's going to replace jobs, how's it going to change the industry. There's a lot of stuff around audio and voiceovers where IP infringements on famous voice artists are now being stolen. So it's a really broad space. But to try and kind of summarize or provide some clarity in the mess, which is what AI is today, is it's not really going anywhere. It's only going to grow and get better. So it's not something that you should kind of turn away from. It's something that you should try to embrace and look into and use. If you're afraid that it's going to replace your job directly, it won't. It will be disruptive though. So it might change how your job works or what your job is specifically, but you'll still have employment in some form in the domain area that you're in. To give you an example of this, marketing is a really big one. People are working copywriting or marketing or even illustrators are petrified that AI is just going to replace them entirely. It won't, because AI is not that clever and will never have the level of domain expertise that an individual will have to review the work that the AI produces. So if you're a copywriter, you're a designer, or even if you're a programmer, the AI might make your life easier and produce some of the work, but you're always going to have to go in and check it, and you always need a domain expert to check it, right? If you think about doctors, that's a really good example at the moment. Doctors might use AI to kind of, progress things or do checks, but at the end of the day, everyone's still going to want to speak to a human being and a doctor that's spent their whole life studying medicine, because you're just not going to trust an AI system. So it's a big topic of conversation. It's only going to grow and get bigger and wider. So I guess the takeaway is I would encourage everyone to engage with it, try it out and use it. and don't be too afraid of it. Obviously, in production, speak with your colleagues or manager before you start chat GPTing all of your work and then plugging it in without actually checking. But like in your own time and spare time, like play around with it because it's not going anywhere, I guess.
Personally, I don't actively use AI as a tool. Um, I'm the type of person I try to sort of. I can definitely respect why people use it as a tool. Um, I think it's actually kind of hard for me to say I don't use it because it's you do a Google search now for anything. I've got a question about what I'm trying to implement or do, and now you do a Google search. One of the first things that you see is like an AI assistant answer. So it's kind of hard for me to say that I don't use it because I will read that paragraph and I will have a look to see what it says as like a summary, but I won't typically take it as gospel. But personally, I don't actively really go out of my way to use it unless I'm trying to structure paragraphs or an outline of, oh, I want to talk about this. I need to write this down in paragraphs. It helps me like bullet point because I just struggle with that kind of communication side of things. But from what I've sort of experienced of it in the very small amount that I have, I found that to kind of back up what was just said, it doesn't know fully the context of what you're trying to do or how you're trying to fit in the work that you're trying to do. And so you kind of have to learn how to navigate and how to use it and how you use the responses it gives you to be able to do what you want. Because it's not going to be 100%, and how it says you should do something might not even fit into the wider scope of what you've done as a whole on the project. So.
Thanks, everyone. Really interesting sort of tips and various kind of views on it. And I think the whole idea of a lack of context is a kind of an important thing to bear in mind whenever you use any of these large language models. So we've only got a few more minutes left, and I thought it would be worth opening up to the audience. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions for anyone on the panel, or just for everyone in general. Are there any questions? Do we have a mic for the audience? I think there's someone with a hand up.
One question I do have is about the false positive rates of AI. Like with large language models and all that, they can hallucinate, of course. And when looking at various pieces of AI in the industry, I just see various cases where they will say something, but they can be incorrect. Personally, with one of our projects, we were looking at fonts and stuff, and it gave out every single font, but the actual font it was. So I'm just curious about like false positive rates when it comes to these large language models.
Yeah. So I heard the question correctly. The question is around like what's the view in industry on like false like language models and
false positives in language models.
So it is a thing that happens. So the product that we have, we built a domain-specific large language model for games, which has over 1 billion data points, and that is one big bravo. It's a hell of a lot. And without getting too technical, like actually, AI really excels when you use domain-specific like learning models and content, which is why everything that we do has domain-specific data sets for per industry. So Player XP, which is the games product, has its own AI engine and its own data set. Patient XP, which is stuff for the NHS, where we analyse patient and staff survey data. Again, there's nothing related to games, because obviously in games, if you're talking about blowing someone's leg off because you're playing Call of Duty, right, it's like you're having a great time, that's really fun, and it should be a positive sentiment, right? It's very violent. Whereas in the NHS, when you're talking about losing a leg, it's not funny at all, and it should not be positive sentiment. So this is like a really simple example of why you need to have domain-specific large language models and data sets, because you don't want hallucinations or like false positives or prompts being interpreted poorly because it's got the wrong data set. And everything behind AI is all about data sets, basically, is what it comes down to.
I feel like you should sort of approach AI the same way, and this is gonna sort of show how long ago I was first in college and stuff. I remember when Wikipedia started being a big thing about a really big open source area to get so much information. And I guess the idea of false positive could be applied there. It's like it's not going to be Wikipedia is not going to be 100% correct, and everyone's saying you shouldn't rely on Wikipedia as your source. You should really sort of, if you try to ask AI a question or you're trying to get a solution, you should not be using that as the only source of research. You should be trying to back it up with other areas. Does it line up? Does it make sense? That kind of thing. And it's the same with Wikipedia. You shouldn't be using that as like your main reference. And I mean, well, good thing with Wikipedia is that people do reference everything they use to kind of write that article at the bottom. So, you know, you could try and look at those sources for yourself, that kind of thing. But yeah, you should just like treat it as, take it with a pinch of salt, and then back it up with actual sort of verifiable sources.
Yeah, sourcing truth is important. I mean, some of the like truths that we give our clients, we're saying like, you know, hundreds of millions of people don't agree with this thing, or you need to remove the jetpack from Call of Duty, or you need to make a new Red Dead Redemption because everyone wants that more than GTA, or whatever it might be, right? And you have to make sure that truth or that answer, that solution that you're sharing is verified and validated, which is why people will always be involved, because you need that domain expertise to validate the thing that you're being told.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's somebody at the front here. I don't know
where the mic's gone.
Oh, there was somebody else. Was somebody else asking a question over there? Sorry.
You're in the dark. Sorry.
Hello. Oh, okay. How would do you have any tips on actually getting into industry, like getting your foot in the door? Because obviously getting to an interview stage is also quite hard. You need to get notice to do that. Do you have tips of getting to that point? Like, what could we do to help get noticed and things?
What industry or what role would you be looking at?
Like software engineering generally.
So not just specifically games, but
not
yeah. It's a good question. So networking, connecting, being here now, doing this is really good, right? Like I'm a CEO of a tech company. You can Google Hertzian and you can meet me after and, you know, have a chat. It's a good starting point. Like having a good portfolio and just engaging with conversations online is a really good starting point as well. And actually having some examples and showing that you've tried and tested lots of different things. But like fundamentally, again, you can kind of put out loads of job applications online and try and engage. But I don't like this is the fact of reality, but it is about who you know, not what you know. So just engaging with people and talking to like panelists today and colleagues and going to events and reaching out to people on LinkedIn and everything in the nature of building connections is the best way to get employment. People are really frustrated with me and Hertzian because we don't often put job adverts out online, and it's because we very rarely actually take applicants. When we hire people, we normally headhunt. Like I already know the people that I want to hire, basically. So you kind of have to combat that.
I would agree about the portfolio as well. It's really good to be able to show your process of working and prove your quality of work, not just that final product you're creating on your portfolio. And one particular tip I would give out is when you apply to a job, try, if it's on LinkedIn, for example, find the head of department for that job and send them a message and show your interest and create a real connection with that person so they know your face and your name. And also just keep a track, like in an Excel sheet, of every job you've applied to, because you're gonna get, you might apply to the same job twice, and you'll know if you've done that. And also just keeping a track of the number of jobs that you've applied for, it's gonna stack up quickly, but it's gonna, you can then keep a track of your effort. You should really help yourself prove that you're trying, because you'll get denied quite a bit. Like that is the reality of it. I got denied jobs a lot, or I just didn't get a response, but keeping a track of it kind of helped show I am pursuing, and it helped me keep focused.
I'm aware that do you want us off the stage shortly? Do you want us to wrap up? Could we take one more question? Or no more questions? Okay, we do need to wrap up. But the panel are here. If you want to come and ask them, you now know what they look like, so you can grab them in the Marta Cafe and have more conversations with them and ask all those questions that you might already have. So I'd like to thank James, Chris, Paul, and Daisy for being part of our panel today. And yeah, thank you very much. And thanks everyone for coming to listen.